I mean, you read the title. I'm ranking every deltarune boss. There's not really much to explain. I'm ranking them based off of how fun the attacks are, and that's it. Story-wise, music. I might bring it up if I find it particularly notable, but that's not going to play a huge part on if something ranks highly or not. This is a game that I hold very special to my heart, and I just want to go ahead and get straight into the ranking. Oh, right, and when future chapters come out, I will 100% make an updated video, but for now, let's just talk about what's already here. This fight would be way higher if I included story and writing as a key part of fights, as this is one of the highlights of Chapter 1 in terms of being a scene. Seeing a Lancer slowly get weaker and weaker as the fight goes on is fantastic, and the attacks missing Susie, showing that Lancer doesn't want to fight, is great. But like, come on, guys. It's a glorified cutscene here. It's a fantastically done scene, and the attacks actually aren't that good. No, they're on the level of, like, basic enemies. Even some basic enemies have more interesting attacks than this. But, yeah, great scene. The music's definitely great too, but again, this is ranked off of gameplay, and this doesn't have that amazing of gameplay. This just feels kinda mean. I love Lancer. He's a little goofball, but his fights aren't very good. And being better than an actual cutscene is not that hard to achieve. I'm not even sure if you can lose this fight because Lancer deals so little damage and it ends so quickly. But outside of that, the two attacks that are in this fight are Lancer runs forward with his bike. This is the easiest attack to dodge in the entire game, and Lancer runs forward with his bike, always in the middle of the screen, and you just circle the box to dodge. Yeah, I guess the main highlight is obviously Lancer's personality, but again, this is based off of attacks, and the attacks you are not getting hit of outside of your first playthrough. This game's fights are a lot better than this, obviously, but, you know, we haven't gotten to the truly amazing stuff yet, which maybe we'll see with the next one. Well, it's better than the actual first fight in the game and a cutscene, but Sweet Cap'n Cakes is, in my opinion, the worst actual boss. The other two are shaky on if they count. This 100% counts, and I don't like this fight. The actual attacks are projectiles raining from the sky. Music notes coming towards you at a somewhat fast pace. They're not that fast, but there's quite a bit of them, and electric shockwaves, and the balls are still going to be raining from the sky. I know that the attacks sync to the music, I believe, but that doesn't make them fun. They're more like Little Timmy's first Undertale fan game, and not a deltarune fight. Especially with this being the first boss, it's kinda bad for Chapter 2's standards. You want to give your first impressions really well, which Chapter 1 does well with its first actual boss. But This sucks. And you can easily cheese the fight. And not even have to do any of the attacks. So, for those reasons, this is the worst actual boss in the game. And it's not even close. Man, this fight's just disappointing. Susie adds 2 really fun attacks, being the attack where she throws her axes normally at you, being actually pretty tight and really satisfying to dodge, and the one where she jumps on Lancer and throws a bunch of axes at you. She likes to throw axes at people. All of it is really fun, but if you know what you're doing, you'll see those twice or not at all. And in that case, this fight is mostly just the Lancer fight again, which, as we all know, isn't that good. Well, yes, I do think the 2 Susie attacks definitely makes this fight a step up from Sweet Cap and Cakes. It's honestly not by much, considering how little you see of them. Okay, the last of the bad fights, really. The fights that aren't special and have one major flaw to them. And, while yes, fights above this have major flaws, there's something in those that make up for it. This doesn't have anything to make up for it. This fight ends incredibly quickly. It has technically 2 attacks, but realistically 1 attack. Well, yes, it's a really fun 1 attack. It's still a singular attack. You might even be wondering why I included this here. It's because it's not included in Chapter 2 All-Stars, which is the challenge that has every single basic enemy. If it appeared in that, I obviously wouldn't have included it. That's why something like Wire isn't going to be here, as it's classified as a basic enemy. Mouse Wheel, there's only 1, you only ever fight 1, and that's that. It's really kinda just filler, and filler is lame. Okay, so this fight is pretty good. Now, of course, this is above the bottom 5, barely though. And that's more or less due to lack of variety and lack of anything amazing. Yeah, sure, it doesn't have a major flaw, but Clover also doesn't have a major advantage. One of its attacks is literally done better in a future fight, and the other one's kinda basic. Nothing about this fight is special, but I think that, in a way, makes it perfect. It's simple for Chapter 1, but I don't really care. It's fairly fun and quite enjoyable, but again, there's nothing that stands out about this fight. It kinda just blends in. Wow, this fight's really fun. Oh, it's over. Yeah, the fight really is that fast. It does suffer from the 1 attack syndrome from Mouse Wheel, but I feel in this case it's a bit more forgivable, as the attacks are far more varied than Mouse Wheel's, which can theoretically be the exact same every single time. Task Managers has variety, and in fact, I think the 1 attack makes up for it, considering you get to choose the attack you do. You can either deal with an electric whip attack along with task balls, or yarn balls, task balls sounds terrifying, or you can deal with with the Simon Says minigame, which is a lot less fun, but it's not awful. And when you get rid of all the attacks, there is another attack. But really, this fight either ends in 4, 3, or 1 turn. This fight, if you answer Task Manager's quiz correctly, ends in a single turn. And that's its flaw. It's not the lack of variety. You can't get stale of the attacks, because it's over already. This fight ends so incredibly quickly that it just leaves to disappoint. No matter what, this fight ends way too quickly, and I think that part is sad. But still, the attacks that are here are really fun, and that's what puts it above other fights that are below this one. I finally made it to the first actual boss in the entire game, K-Round. And fundamentally, they're a tutorial on what to expect from bosses. Banging music, slightly more dynamic attacks with K-Round actually attacking you themselves by stomping on you. In fact, let's quickly talk about the attacks. The stomp, the first one you see, is really easy to dodge. I'm not even gonna lie. You can kinda just turn your brain off and move left to right. The star kicks, as I'd like to call them, are basic and easy. Well, yeah, sure, the spreading out of the stars can definitely trip some newer players up. If you know what you're doing, you will just move around them. Who cares about TP gain? Just don't die. Now, of course, there's the second variation of the stomp, and it has less stomps in the first variation, but now, some stars pop up. And yeah, sure, it can definitely make things a bit more interesting. It's still nothing special. In fact, the final attack being that one where K-Round jumps up and rains a bunch of stars down, is the only attack I could see a player getting hit by if they know what they're doing, due to the more sporadic movement of the stars compared to everything else. But really though, this fight is meant to show you, hey, this is what you can expect from bosses, and that's it. Well, yes, K-Round is definitely higher than some other bosses. That isn't due to K-Round being this spectacular fight. It's because, in a sense, K-Round does everything it needs to correctly, while the other fights below this one are insanely flawed in either multiple or one aspect that just brings the fight down. Rules card. One of the most unique fights in the game. A completely unique board game-like mechanic where you try and take the most property you can or block off your opponent from gaining any more. Although, sadly, that kind of shoots the fight in its foot, as it can end insanely quickly if you know what you're doing. But, of course, that part is kinda luck-based on if you can end it quickly. You can definitely do it consistently, but it does require a tad bit of luck, unlike Task Manager over there, who can, again, consistently be beaten before they even attack. I can't get over that. Ugh. Anyways, rules card. The most unique and interesting part about this fight goes to its gimmick. No, not the property. The fact that the fight changes drastically depending on the thrash machine you made in the previous chapter, with certain things you've made impacting the attacks rules will use. He will always use that attack where boxes rain down from the sky, but that's it. Every other attack is completely dictated by what you chose as the Thrash Machine, and that makes this fight insanely interesting and insanely varied, arguably making for a very replayable fight because you'll want to see all the different attacks. Of course, you'll either have to get lucky by replaying this chapter a bunch, or replaying Chapter 1, then Chapter 2. Although that's not a big problem. This game's really fun and really well made. But outside of that, that's it. The fight is only that. It's not the most substance. It's almost malnutrition with the lack of meat on its bones. But I feel as the variety of the fight definitely puts it higher than the fights below it, and definitely makes for quite the interesting and unique fight, especially when every other fight in this game so far is consistent. You know what to expect from them. You know the attacks they'll throw out every time. And especially if you're one to start from Chapter 2, you have no idea what to expect from a rules card unless you've memorized what every Thrash Machine part can add to the fight. Spamton G. Spamton, the legend himself. The big fan favorite character. He has a unique sparing mechanic. Yeah, the attacks are fine enough. I honestly don't know why I put him this high. All the attacks kind of focus on being very cramped feeling. The mini Spamtons are definitely the most unique attack. Besides, I guess, maybe the Vortex thing where he sucks up the box and some money. But even then, that's done better at the end of Neo. The fight's definitely more interesting than some other ones, I guess. And I do find a lot of the attacks very satisfying. Yeah, I got nothing. This fight kinda just exists in my mind. It's definitely a fun fight. I definitely have fun with it, but there's nothing much to it. Oh no, it's him. It's Falco from Super Smash Bros. Melee. I'm horrified. Wait, what do you mean, Berdly? There's no way. Berdly's not allowed to look cool. Anyways, unfunny jokes aside, this is an actually solid fight. It's certainly not fantastical, like I'm not going to say this fight is one of my new favorites. Now, of course, it is definitely quite high up, but I think that's just due to the fact that I feel a lot of fights have either a major problem or a lack of substance. This fight doesn't really have that. Each attack, well, yes, only there being a few of them, is really fun to dodge, and definitely isn't a complete lack of enjoyment. Similar to K-Round, I'd say, while the fight doesn't excel in anything, it's definitely not bad in any aspects. The attacks are definitely quite enjoyable. I really enjoy whatever the thing he shoots with his halberd is. And, of course, this fight does also get a rematch, which, speaking of the rematch, I know some people probably think this shouldn't even be included because it's a rematch, but every attack is definitely a different variation. Of course, there's the big difference in the tornado attack, the halberd, is a bit tighter to dodge, and the homework attack is faster and has more projectiles. And of course, the wear wires that come in also give additional variation to the attacks. This fight is a huge step up from its base variation, and of course, the only thing stopping it from being higher is due to the fact that everything above it is a huge step up from this. I think this fight is really fun and is a great time, but like, everything else is better. Literally. I know this was probably a very brief section, but it's a rematch. Oh, now these are some good fights. Now that we've made it to the top 5, we can truly get to what makes this game truly special in its boss fights. Starting out with the final boss of Chapter 1, the King. You've heard about him in whispers and stuff, saying how he's a fierce opponent, and he certainly makes that impression for newer players, as his attacks are quite a bit harder than any other enemy you faced up to this point, unless you did the secret boss. Then this fight is a lot easier, but you know, you're not meant to know about the secret boss yet. Anyways, every attack in this fight has an amazing flow to it, with 2 exceptions in my opinion. The one with the tail things flying everywhere, while definitely satisfying to rack up a bunch of TP on, doesn't really flow the best. And the attack that starts the fight out is also kinda just there. It's just a nice attack to have you warm up, I guess. But it's not really the best. But every other attack flows fantastically, in my opinion. And this fight messes around with moving the attack box in amazing ways. The one with the spiked edges in the bouncing box is great. The one where he literally grabs it with his tail chain whip thing, I don't know what to call it, is probably the best feeling attack to dodge in the game, in my opinion, even rivaling some of the final hacks of secret bosses. It feels amazing. In fact, this fight follows a theme, for the most part, of messing with the attack box, with having a total of 3. Well, yeah, sure, that's certainly not a huge amount. It's still, like, the majority of his attacks. And I'm not even complaining about that. It feels great. And this fight simply feels great. In fact, I had so much fun with it that I wanted to no-hit it. And I did. And all in all, this fight truly sets a great impression at the end of Chapter 1 and has you excited to continue playing after this point to see what other things could be hidden within this game. So far, with these last few, each one has been a big step up from its previous one, and Queen continues to follow this theme, as their fight is a huge step up from King's, and it's quite the fun one too, with the best boss theme in the entire game, in my opinion, Attack the Killer Queen. The fight's unique gimmick of having the acid wall is a fun way to prolong the fight and make sure it doesn't end insanely quickly, letting you enjoy these attacks even more. While King just simply has it basically have a turn limit, this one is definitely quite a bit different. Also, fun fact, you can attack the acid wall, it doesn't ruin a pacifist run. Anyways, each attack, similar to King's, has a fantastic flow to it, And in fact, I'd say every attack has this flow to it. With maybe the exception of the Queen Head attack, everything just flows nicely. And it's fantastic in my opinion. This fight is really fun. In fact, we have a better, faster paced version of a king attack with the one with just the shooting lines. It feels a lot better. It just the best way to describe this fight is the king fight, but better in every way. I adore this fight so much, and I could see it even being third place. But for now, at least, there is one fight that I think has to take third, and that goes to beating Base Queen by just a hair. We have Giga Queen, and I truly mean by a hair. After 70 hours, I've come to enjoy this one just a bit more, but genuinely, both this and the normal Queen fight are insanely fun. But of course, let's cover the obvious part of the fight. You're playing Punch-Out. Yeah, this is just Punch-Out. You gotta dodge their punch, then counter punch. And well, it's quite fun. Well, I will say this fight definitely has some of the biggest flaws in the entirety of the roster of bosses. The amount of fun in the attacks and the variety are unmatched, especially during the no-hit variation of round 3. It's exhilarating, making for a insanely fun fight. Oh, right, and there's the normal attacks. The one in the style of the rest of the game. Yeah, those suck. They rarely show up, like I rarely get them, and they're not the best. And that's kind of it. The fight's really fun. Besides that, though, this fight is insanely fun. But of course, for those who have been keeping track or simply know about the game, you already knew what the top 2 were gonna be. But the question is, which one do I prefer? And sadly, this one takes second place. Jevil is really fun. This fight is amazing. I love this fight so much. Chapter 1's secret boss truly makes quite the impression and is also the hardest fight in the game, bar none. But of course, there are some flaws. But that, I mean, like, it has one mediocre attack, and the Devil's Knife attack is kind of just bad in general. It feels really nice, but it's just go around the box. Like, it's really easy, and the carousel, it exists, and like every other attack is insanely fun, and kind of just it brings the fight up a lot, obviously. But of course, the fight above this has one attack I dislike. So yeah, that's how close these are. Genuinely, you could ask me in a while, and I might say this one's better, but of course, despite how fun this fight is, the chaos in every attack, I can't look past its shortcomings, with definitely some more basic attacks. Although Final Chaos is a lot better than Spamton's ultimate attack, there's only so much that a barrage of projectiles can bring, and that's honestly quite a few of these attacks. Each of the playing card boxes are kinda just projectiles, and you might be saying, hey, the Spamton does that too. Yeah, but we'll get to Spamton and why I prefer him barely. The harder variations of earlier attacks are also kinda cool, but a bit lazy, if I might add. But outside of those, there's not really many flaws. And those are realistically nitpicks. This fight is really fun and really hard. Like, I still can't consistently beat this one. Oh boy, Spamton Neo is one of my favorite bosses in any video game. Every single attack besides the Peepus are extraordinarily fun. Each one flows fantastically. And, well, yeah, sure, I kinda suck at the face attack and the Peepus one is just annoying. I'm not gonna let that detract from the nigh flawlessness of this fight. While this doesn't reach the level of the funny man, it's still fantastic. The fight introduces the Yellow Soul mechanic and introduces it well, with the new Big Shot mechanic also being a phenomenal addition, making this fight even more unique. The power in the Big Shot is truly felt when you just see it tear through projectiles, and this fight is fantastical. While I do kinda wish the attacks had a bit more of a cramped feel to them, well, yeah, sure, some of them are kinda cramped. It's not the feeling that I get from regular Spamton, which is kinda weird. I feel like the crampedness fits Spamton really well. But of course, we're not here talking about how fitting I think the attacks are. We're here to talk about how fantastic this one is. And while my biggest complaint with the Jewel fight is the attacks are kinda just projectiles, this fight actually has more interesting things, in my opinion. Each attack, in a way, either interacts with the player or interacts with Spamton in a way that is really fun. The heart bounces around and spawns the projectiles, meaning you can predict where they're going to come from if you're watching the heart, and you have to shoot it down to beat it. It's great. The boss theme here as well, I want to give a quick mention to. It is the big fan favorite to my knowledge in terms of boss themes. And, well, yeah, sure, this is a good theme. Attack of the Killer Queen's right there, guys. I'm just saying. Anyways. Of course, the face attack requires you to shoot it down. And it, again, feels great. And feels like you're interacting with the opponent. Which I feel like is kind of missed in a lot of other fights. Besides Giga Queen and King. Every attack in this, in a way, feels like an interaction with the opponent. You're either taking down projectiles brought at you, or directly attacking Spamton in some way, which makes it feel far more like a battle, which I really like. And this fight also just showcases Spamton's personality in quite a way, and that's why Spamton is also like a fan favorite character, I'm pretty sure. If he was just left as his normal one-off boss appearance, people wouldn't care. But the performance put on here and the personality shown is why people love this kooky salesman so much. And while he's certainly not my favorite character in the game, he certainly has by far my favorite fight. Also, this is way easier than Jell, but that's because it's introducing a completely unique mechanic. And cut. That's it. The ranking's done. This it is to me. I adore this game, and it's one of my favorites. I love learning unique things about this game, and I'm excited for the full release when it comes out, and I will definitely be redoing this list when the full game is out. But for now, see y'all, and I might do something new.